and through the air, cloudy and serene, in every kind of weather, to whom you give sustenance to your creatures. Just as the sun makes things warm, so the wind can make things very cold. Have you ever been too cold and wished you had a warm blanket or more clothes on? I sure have. Sometimes the cold weather is dangerous, but even in those times, Father Solanus wanted us to stick close to God. Here is a wonderful story about one of those times.
Mr. and Mrs. McHugh had a beautiful baby girl named Marianne. At 2 years old, she became very, very ill. The doctor said her temperature was 104 degrees, which is very hot and very dangerous. If it went to 106, she would die. They called a doctor who came to the house, but he was afraid to take the baby outside to the hospital. He was afraid the cold weather would kill Marianne. The next day, the doctor came again. Marianne's temperature was 105, and the doctor gave Marianne's mom and dad the sad news. Marianne would probably not live through the night. Mr. and Mrs. McHugh were desperate. They called Father Murphy, who had prayed over little Marianne earlier that day. But no matter how much he prayed, there was no change in her condition. Father Murphy told them, "Call Father Solanus at the Capuchin Monastery right away. Do whatever he tells you to do." So she called Father Solanus, who said, "Wrap your child up in a blanket real good and bring her down to the monastery to see me right away." But the doctor told her the cold weather might kill Marianne. Poor Mrs. McHugh. She began to cry. Then she remembered what Father Murphy had said. Do whatever he tells you to do. Mrs. McHugh and her mother bundled up Marianne. They drove to the monastery. It was a long, cold ride, and cars back then were not as warm as they are today. Father Solanus met them at the door of the monastery. He took the baby from Mrs. McHugh and held Marianne in his arms. He prayed silently for a very long time. And then he smiled at the young child. Father Solanus placed Marianne back into her mother's arms and walked them to the car. As he closed the car door, he called the mother by her first name and said, "Therese, be sure to bring her back on Saturday for Mass." But Therese cried, "Father, the doctors don't think she'll live that long." But Father Solanus said, "Just do as I tell you. Bring her to me. She'll be ready." That night, Mrs. McHugh put Marianne to bed, and through the night she placed cool, damp towels on Marianne's hot forehead. She continued to pray for her daughter. About 6 o'clock in the morning, little Marianne opened her eyes, smiled, and said, "Mommy, I'm hungry." Mrs. McHugh jumped up and noticed that the sheets and pillowcases were soaking wet. The fever had broken. Her little girl was healed. Mrs. McHugh called the doctor and Father Murphy. They both came right over. The doctor said, "This is a miracle!" And Father Murphy could not believe his eyes. And the little girl, she just looked up at the two astonished men and smiled. Blessed be God in all his designs.